Let's talk about sales tax or value added tax. So, we've heard a lot about taxes. We've heard a lot about taxes being in the bills. We have heard about GST. We have heard about different types of taxes. So, let's see what these taxes are. We are studying about two types of taxes here, that is sales tax or value added tax. So, first of all, sales tax is a tax imposed by the government on the sale of goods and services. It is usually a percentage of the selling price of the item. So when we are saying that we have like 3% GST, 5% GST, 18% GST. So what does 18% GST mean? It means that the government is actually imposing a particular amount. A particular amount is given to the government when an item is sold, right? So a particular percentage of the selling price is taken as the sales tax by the government. When you purchase something, a certain percentage of the price is added as a sales tax, and that extra amount goes to the government. So the formula to calculate cost price with sales tax, so the total cost. What would be the total cost we would be paying then? It would be the selling price plus the selling price into the sales tax rate. Okay. Now, what is value added tax? Value added tax or VAT is another type of tax levied on the value added to a product or service at each stage of production and distribution. Unlike sales tax, which is imposed only at the final point of sale, VAT is applied to each stage of the supply chain. Let's say that I am manufacturing some things. I am manufacturing some clothes. So now I just sell it to some dealer who deals with me, and this dealer collects it from a particular price from me. And this guy sells it to another guy who is actually supplying it to different places or the stores where they sell clothes. So if we are saying that, we could know that at every person, like every point of circulation, they add a tax on their own, right? So the manufacturers and then the suppliers and the vendors, they have at each point a particular amount of money is added, called as say VAT or like value added tax. So how to calculate VAT? We could say that the total cost is equal to selling price plus selling price into VAT rate. Now, let's see about interest. So we've heard about interest, right? So what is interest? Interest is basically an amount of money that is earned or charged when borrowing or lending money. Just say that if I am lending money to someone with a particular rate of interest, that means that I am charging them an additional amount of money because I'm lending them money. I'm saying that I need 10% of interest for the money I'm lending. That means that in additional to the money I'm lending, they have to pay me 10% of the whole money as an interest, right? Or if I'm borrowing some money from a bank, say in an interest of 5%, what does it mean? It means that in addition of this money I am gaining, I have to repay back 5% of the whole money, the total amount I have taken to the bank. It is a way to compensate the lender for allowing someone to use their money or to reward the person who saves or invests their money. So what is interest? Interest is basically this additional amount of money a lender or a person who is actually borrowing money pays to the lender, accordingly, which is, we have different interest rates. At some places it's like 5%, at some places it's like 10%, 18%, it depends on the place. So there are two types of interest. There is simple interest and then there is compound interest. Let's see what simple interest is right now. So simple interest is calculated only on the original principal amount of money. It does not take into account any interest that has been previously earned or charged. So basically, let's say that I am taking a particular amount of money, that is, let's say 1,000 rupees. I'm taking 1,000 rupees and I'm saying that the interest is actually 10% per year, right? 10% per year. So basically, if it's simple interest, it's the principal amount, which is 1000 rupees, into what is the interest rate? It's 10%. It's 10% into, I'm taking 1 year, right? So it's 1000 into 10 by 100 is 0.1, which is, we multiplied 0.1 into 1000. The simple interest would be 100 rupees per year. And this just remains. That is, we add 100 rupees to the principal amount every year. This is simple interest. Now, when we are talking about compound interest, what happens is, say that after 1 year, we paid an interest of 100, right? Or we got an interest of 100 for a money we are depositing 1000 rupees. We got an interest of 100 rupees. And then what happens is, for the next year, we are taking the principal amount to be 1100 rupees. How? Because the added interest comes in. So, compound interest takes into account not only the principal amount, but also the interest that has been previously earned or charged. This means that the interest is added to the principal, and in subsequent periods, interest is calculated on new total. So basically, after 1 year, according to simple interest, we had 100 rupees simple interest and our principal was 1000. So after 1 year, our principal amount becomes 1100, right? So then we get the interest for that 1100 rupees. And then again, after 1 year, we add the interest back to again 1100, and then we find the interest of the whole amount of money. So formula for calculating compound interest is equal to principal into 1 plus rate by n, right, whole raised to time minus the principal, right? So principal is the initial amount of money, rate is the interest rate, which is given in decimal. Time refers to the duration of which the money is borrowed or saved, usually in years. Okay, so let's move on. So we can calculate compound interest at any times. Let's say we are compounding the money annually. That is, after 1 year, we take the whole interest and add it up to the principal amount, and then it becomes the principal amount. Or we could do it biannually. That is like half yearly. We do it twice a year, right? That is, we take the principal amount, we add the interest in 6 months, and then again after 6 months, after 6 months, this added interest becomes the principal, and then again after 6 months, we add the second time to the previous principal, right? So the amount of compound interest compounded yearly by applying the formula. What is the formula of compound interest here? It was compound interest is equal to principal into 1 plus rate by n whole raised to time, or we could write as nt. Nt is like, n is a factor. It would be used here. See, compound interest is equal to P into 1 plus R by 100, which is the rate, whole raised to T minus P, right? So this is basically the amount for the compound interest, it's not the cost price, we're talking about the amount. That's why we didn't subtract the principal. So we have P into 1 plus R by 100 whole raised to T, the amount of compound interest compounded half yearly. So when it's half yearly, what happens is the rate is divided by 2. The rate becomes R by 2 and the time is multiplied by 2. Why? Because it was once in a year, now it becomes twice a year, but the rate reduces to half, right? Now amount would be equal to P into 1 plus rate by 2 into 100 whole raised to T into 2. So if we are talking about the cost, compound interest, it would be P principal into 1 plus R by 2 into 100 whole raised to T into 2 minus P. Now, growth and depreciation. Growth refers to increase or expansion in value, quantity or size over time. Can be applied to various aspects. So what is normally growth? When do we say that a person grows? when there's an expansion in length or like anything. When do you say when a person grows? When a person gets like older, we say that they grow, right? So what is growth? Growth is basically increasing of a value. So how do we find the growth in here? So basically, if we have, earlier we talked about the money, we're talking about 592 for a book, and then it became 482. So this is not growth. This is reducing the value. Just say if it was sold for 700 rupees, we could say that then this is a growth. So how do we calculate growth? How do we compare growth? How would we say that? On what basis would we say that a person had grown? We would actually compare the current situation of the person with how it used to be in the older time when we saw them before, right? Just like the same thing, we calculate growth by subtracting the initial value from the final value, and to get a comparison, we divide it by the initial value. Now, what is depreciation? Depreciation refers to a decrease in value over time. It is commonly associated with the reduction in the value of assets such as vehicle, electronics, machinery, etc. So basically, we have seen that, we get a car, we get a new car, we use it for some time, and we are going to sell it. So basically, the value of the car decreases, right? So basically, the selling price, if we are selling it after some time, would be lesser than the cost price or the price we bought it for, right? Now that is called depreciation. How do we calculate depreciation? Now we calculate depreciation by subtracting the final value from the initial value, and to compare, we divide it with the initial value. So this is about growth and depreciation. So let's quickly sum it up what all we learned in the chapter comparing quantities. We learned about average of a number. How do we take an average of a number? We consider all the numbers. We were talking about an example with the number of pens and with 5 students. So we summed up how many number of pens we have, and we divided it by the number of persons, and we got the average of it. So that was about average. We talked about the properties of average, where it is less than the lowest, it is greater than the lowest value, and it's lesser than the greatest value. Now we talked about percentage. We talked about how the percentage is gotten. Like we take a fraction, we multiply it by 100, we get the percentage of it. How to convert fractions to percentage, how to convert decimal to percentage, how to convert a percentage to fraction. How do we convert it? We just divide it by 100, we remove the percentage sign, we divide it by 100, we get the fraction. And then if we convert that fraction into decimal, we get the decimal form of that number. Then we talked about profit and loss. We talked about what is profit, we talked about what is loss. Now we had cost price. We have two type of cost price. One is fixed cost price, the other one is variable cost price. Fixed cost price was when it was like a fixed price and it never changes according to circumstance. And when it's a variable cost price, it just changed according to the circumstances. Now, the selling price was the price which the item was sold for, and the marked price was the price which was fixed by the seller, or which was the price on the price tag. Now, the discount is the price which is a special reduction in price of an item. So, the discount is calculated by subtracting the selling price from the marked price, and the discount percentage is calculated by dividing discount by marked price into 100. Now, when we are talking about successive discounts, that is more than one discounts, it's found out by the final price is found out by multiplying the original price by 1 minus first discount price into 1 minus the second discount price. Now, we talked about the different formulas of profit and loss, and profit percentage and loss percentage and discount. And then we talked about the formulas when there are like two profits, m percentage and n percentages. Then we talked about there is a profit and a loss, or two losses. We talked about how all that works. And then we talked about sales tax and value added tax, and we found the formula of sales tax is total cost is equal to selling price plus selling price into sales tax rate. And for value added tax, total cost is equal to selling price plus selling price into value added tax rate. Now we talked about interest. We talked that interest is an additional amount of money we pay or we get when we are investing or we are lending money from a person or an institution. So it is a compensation for, giving the money or like borrowing the money. So basically there are two types of interest. We have simple interest and compound interest. So simple interest is basically the interest is added annually and the principal remains constant. That is simple interest, and the formula is principal into rate into time. And we talked about compound interest, where the amount is compounded, the principal amount is compounded, which means that the interest is added to the principal amount according to according to a period of time, be it yearly once or be it yearly twice. And we talked about the two situations, which is yearly once and yearly twice. And this is about the chapter comparing quantities.